Welcome to the Action Network studio in New York City. I'm Maria Marino, and this is Green Dot Daily. Happy to begin another week. We come to you every weekday at 3 Eastern on the Action app and YouTube channel. Coming up on the show, Warriors' futures may not be dead, but they could be on life support. We're going to ask Matt more about that in just a moment. Plus, Corbin Burns' early struggles, should they scare you away? We'll discuss that and more MLB picks. Also, the NHL playoffs begin tonight, so we're going to tell you everything you need to know to place your bets. But we start in the NBA and welcome in Matt Moore. Quite the weekend, very fun first round of the NBA playoffs so far. What was the biggest surprise for you that will most impact a series moving forward?
I think it's got to be the Clippers upset of the Suns in Game 1 in Phoenix. There were some other notables, but some of them had injury, things that impacted things. With Phoenix, really, they were undefeated with Kevin Durant, and then the Clippers, everything that we kind of talked about in our series preview in the Action Network app kind of came along and happened. We advised Clippers plus 2.5. The Clippers' ability to switch caused them all sorts of problems. The Clippers' depth was a real issue. They dominated in terms of Norman Powell bench scoring was huge in that game. Terrence Mann gave them good minutes. Bones Highland gave them good minutes. And for the Suns, none of the other guys outside of Devin Booker and Kevin Durant were really great in that game. Obviously, giving up the late offensive rebounds to Russell Westbrook, that was rough despite Westbrook shooting terribly. He was a huge positive down the stretch. That was a great win for the Clippers, and it does show you that this series is likely to go long, that for as good as the Suns are, the Clippers are a good matchup against them.
And you had already advised the Clippers plus 2.5, I believe?
Yeah, we talked about that in the app. I think taking them plus 2.5 on the series spread, there was good value in that. You could still get a pretty good number on that as well. The Clippers are live to win this series. I'm not quite there on betting them outright to win without Paul George, but I will say that if Kawhi Leonard's going to play like this, and if the Suns role players, we already saw an overreaction from Monty Williams. He pulled Josh Okogie from the starting unit and put in Torrey Craig. That made their bench unit worse offensively. Whenever a coach preemptively adjusts the starting lineup, that's never a good sign. You never want to be the first one to make an adjustment in a series. Coaches will tell you that. Surprising stuff from Monty Williams. The Suns are in for a fight, I think, in this first round series.
This is a classic case to me of making a big splash trade, but then sacrificing some of your depth in the process. And we saw a little of that sort of come into play in Game 1. Can you walk us through some of the other notable Game 1 upsets and whether your series outlooks have changed?
Yeah, so let's go to obviously the 1-8 upset as the Miami Heat, after losing a play-in game, then going to Milwaukee and steal Game 1. Phenomenal offensive performance from them for a team that struggled so much offensively. The big story, though, is going to be Giannis Antetokounmpo, who left the game and did not return with back contusion. Shams Charania of The Athletic reported on Monday morning that he is looking more likely to play in Game 2 than previously thought. That's optimistic, obviously, for the Bucks, who need their best player and arguably the best player in the league. I will say, though, the Bucks were down when Giannis got hurt. Like, this was not everything was going great and then Giannis got hurt. It removed their ability, I think, to make the comeback. But this is going to be a long series. The Heat are going to hang around. This is what they do. They're zombies. They just kind of stay alive and hang around. They're obviously going to miss Tyler Hero. He's out 4 to 6 weeks with a broken hand. Did take a shot afterwards, which is wild. But look, Miami's adaptability. They won this game with shooting and offense. They can win another one with defense. This is what we've been saying consistently over on our podcast buckets throughout the season. Milwaukee's offense struggles in the postseason. They simply do not hit the good looks that they generate. They don't have the shooting touch for them to really create separation. Miami's going to hang in this series. I'll be looking at them for certain spots, both against the spread and on the money line as the series progresses. Probably staying away from them in Game 2 with Giannis back, though.
And we also have to talk about Lakers Grizzlies. I don't think this one was maybe as much of a surprise. I think maybe you would have expected a split. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I thought that the Lakers would get one of the first two. Liked Memphis in the first game. Thought maybe that their home court advantage in terms of creating turnovers and transition would work out. The Ja Morant injury obviously weighs very big here. He's very unlikely to go in Game 2. His comments after the game made it sound like he's going to miss some time. The market shows that. This is moved to Grizzlies -1.5. That's obviously really short for a home favorite in this series. So the last 5 years, I will say that you've seen this Grizzlies team come up, but in general, I do like the fact that the Lakers got that first win behind an offensive performance. Weird game in terms of both defenses struggling. Overall, I think the Lakers are in really great shape. We took the Lakers in the app. They're in a good position to advance over the Grizzlies.
Well, kudos to you. So tonight on the schedule, we have Nets and Sixers game 2 and Warriors Kings game 2. Who are you picking?
Yeah, I'll take the Sixers -10. I'm taking the over 213.5. The Sixers shot a ton of threes in that first game. The Nets don't really have the capacity to prevent them because they have to double Joel Embiid. So I like the over there. Sixers -10 is the best bet, though. Teams that win game 1 as a favorite, and then game 2, the line moved toward them, so they're a bigger favorite in game 2. 13-5-1. That's 72% in the last 5 years. And 60% since 2003 in a much bigger sample. What we've seen historically is that when teams dominate that game 1 matchup and the market adjusts to where they don't believe that there's going to be a zigzag, the team won't make adjustments to keep it within a closer range, but that team does tend to go ahead and cover the number. So I'll lay the points with the Sixers. The Nets, if they were going to win a game, if they were going to steal one, if they were going to cover, it was going to be that game 1. They got 30 from Mikal Bridges. They did a lot of the things that they wanted to, and it wasn't nearly enough. I think the Sixers are going to dominate this. I'm looking towards Sixers on the sweep as well. The Sixers are going to cruise, I think, in this first round series.
Yeah.
As we look to tonight with the Warriors game, I'll go ahead and hit that one real quick. I'm going to take the Warriors because I enjoy pain. I took the Warriors in game 1, and that one was painful. And so I'm going back to the well here. I will say that, like, this one, a road team that lost game 1 is a closing favorite. We don't have a big history of teams being in this spot being favored in that second game. It doesn't tend to happen. So pretty rare occurrence here with the Kings being a dog again at home. This did flip, though. It opened as Warriors -1, flipped to Kings, and then flipped back, and now Warriors are -1.5. A lot of things went sideways for Warriors late in that game. Their defense should be better. I'll go ahead and trust Golden State to get the win here and even the series going back to the Bay.
Yeah, this is another one I think you probably expect to split between the Warriors and the Kings in the first 2 games. Do you feel like the Warriors in this series as a whole, like, I feel like if any team could sort of come back, you would think it'd be them, but I don't know if that's just my, long-term perception of the Warriors, which has been sort of a factor going into this series from the jump. And I know you like the Warriors going in, so what do you think about that?
I think the Warriors are good for the series. I think they'll win this series. It's going to take them a while, and that's where the problem kind of starts to come in. One of the reasons that we like the Warriors in the series is, look, when Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, when those 3 guys have played every game in the series, they're undefeated. They have not lost a series when those guys are available for every game until the end. However, I will say that the fact that the Kings took game 1, the fact that the series is likely to go long, because I think the Kings can take another one, that's going to cause real problems for Warriors futures. I think Warriors futures, if you're looking at the Western Conference and you're like, ooh, Phoenix may not be as unbeatable as kind of the market had suggested, I like the Warriors here. Be cautious. The Warriors are going to have to play long minutes for all of their key guys, including Steph Curry. They didn't play him probably enough at 38 minutes. They're going to have to get his minutes total over 40 in a first-round series. I don't think Steve Kerr wants to do that, but he's going to have to. They're simply too bad when Curry is off the floor. They don't have the depth that they used to be able to have. There will be better games for Klay Thompson for sure. And so some of these minutes without Curry won't be as bad in stagger rotations, but the starters are all going to have to play heavy minutes. This is going to take a toll on them as they continue to progress if they get past the Kings, which again, I think they do. But this minute load is concerning. If the Kings are giving them trouble, it doesn't bode well for the Warriors to make a deep run, because they're going to have to play those starter guys long minutes, and I'm not sure they're going to have the gas once they reach the conference finals or beyond.
Totally fair to think that it's just not sustainable should they attempt to make a deeper run into these playoffs. All right, Matt, thanks. We'll see you again later this week on Green Dot Daily.
Thank you.
Some NFL news Monday as reports say Jalen Hurts has agreed to a 5-year contract extension with the Eagles worth $255 million, over $179 million guaranteed. It's the biggest contract in league history in terms of average annual value. We'll be talking more NFL Tuesday with Chad Millman and Simon Hunter here on the show. Green Dot Daily is presented by BetMGM. Use bonus code ACTION when signing up to get up to $1,000 paid back in bonus bets if you don't win your first bet. Terms and conditions apply. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. To baseball, and here to get us ready for tonight's action is BJ Cunningham. BJ, always good to see you. Over the weekend, the Blue Jays handed the Rays their first 2 losses of the season. Now the Jays are in Houston tonight. What do you make of this matchup?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great pitching matchup here. Kevin Gausman going against Christian Javier. With these 2 starting pitchers, I think the total is a tad too high. So Kevin Gausman, for the last 3 seasons, has had an expected ERA under 3.6. His stuff plus was at 109 last season. That was 12th in Major League Baseball. And his pitching plus was also 109. That was second among qualified Major League Baseball starting pitchers. And it's because he has one of the most single deadliest pitches in Major League Baseball, his splitter. He threw it about 35% of the time last season. It produced a 44% whiff rate, and opposing hitters only had around a 170 expected batting average against it. Houston last season against splitters, only a 150 expected batting average. Christian Javier is a dark horse Cy Young candidate. It's because last season he had a 2.43 expected ERA. That was one of the best marks in Major League Baseball. Now, he is a fastball-heavy pitcher, which is a dangerous game to play against the Blue Jays, but he has a terrific wipeout slider that produced a 39% whiff rate, and the Blue Jays were just about average against sliders. Plus, the Astros last season had the best bullpen in Major League Baseball. And Toronto, they also were around average, but their stuff plus and pitching plus numbers were near the top 10. So we have 2 good bullpens, 2 fantastic starting pitchers going up against 2 good offenses. I think pitching outweighs the offenses, so I like under 8.5 runs.
Yes, all signs pointing to the under for Blue Jays. Astros elsewhere on tonight's slate. The Brewers, who have gotten off to an 11-5 start, send Corbin Burnes to the mound. They are facing the Mariners. What's your play on this game?
Yeah, I like the Brewers for the first 5 and the full game, both at -150 at BetMGM. The thing about Corbin Burnes is 2 years ago, he was the NL Cy Young. And last season, he dropped off a tad bit. His xERA was sitting at 3.08. He's had a couple rough starts to begin the season, but his expected ERA is sitting at 3.12. That's exactly how he was last season. If you look through his stuff plus and pitching plus numbers, they're generally exactly the same as they were in 2022. So even though he's had those rough couple of starts and his ERA is sitting over 5, there's nothing that suggests that he is a significantly worse pitcher than what the market is implying here, because Chris Flexen was a drastic overperformer last year. His ERA was sitting around 3.7, but his expected ERA was almost a full run higher, around 4.6. He mainly only throws a fastball and a cutter, which is not 2 pitches you can throw to the Brewers lineup because they were top 10 in Major League Baseball against both of those. So this is a really good matchup here for the Brewers. And usually the Mariners will have advantages in their bullpen, but the Brewers so far this season are number 1 in Major League Baseball in both stuff plus and pitching plus. So the Mariners won't have an advantage there. So I think Corbin Burnes is significantly discounted here at -150. So I like him for the full game and for the first 5.
Not all bad for Corbin Burnes. All right, while we have you here, let's get a soccer pick. The second leg of the Champions League is going on tomorrow. So what should we be paying attention to?
Yeah, so the only tie that's actually still realistically, for a team actually to come back is between AC Milan and Napoli. Bayern is down 3 goals to Manchester City, Benfica is down 2 goals to Inter, and Real Madrid's up 2 goals on Chelsea. So this AC Milan-Napoli match is probably the most exciting of any of them, and it's a very fascinating tactical battle because this is going to be the 3rd time that they face each other, being 2 Italian clubs. And in the previous meeting, it was, Napoli did something very different than when they lost 4-0 to AC Milan on April 2nd. They sat off instead of pressing them forward, and which created a lot of space in behind. So now AC Milan is going to be defending a 1-goal lead. They were really good with their man-marking counter-pressing against Napoli after about the first 20 minutes in that first leg, but I expect them to sit off and defend their penalty area, which they did a great job of in the round of 16 when they played Tottenham. Tottenham in the second leg only created about half an expected goal, didn't put the ball in the back of the net. Now, Napoli will be getting Victor Osimhen back, who's been one of the best strikers across Europe this season. But they're going to be without Anguissa, one of their best midfielders, who picked up a red card in the first leg, and Kim Min-jae, who is their best center back, who's got a yellow card accumulation suspension. The drop-off from Kim Min-jae to either Juan Jesus or whatever type of fullback they want to slot in there is pretty drastic, because Kim Min-jae has played 28 of the available 30 90s so far for Napoli here in Serie A, and they just don't really have a good replacement for him. So trying to defend, especially in transition, because they're going to have to press, and that's going to leave a lot of space in behind for guys like Leao and Theo Hernandez, Olivier Giroud, and guys to just, basically do what AC Milan does best, which is attack and transition. So I like the value on AC Milan plus a half. You can find it at bet at plus 110 at some shops. They're minus 140 to advance, so essentially you're getting a 50% discount that this match doesn't go to extra time. So I like AC Milan plus a half at plus 110.
All right, we'll be looking out for AC Milan. Always appreciate the soccer education from you. And that's all we have for today. BJ Cunningham, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Maria.
Now to NHL. The playoffs begin tonight with the Islanders visiting the Hurricanes at 7 Eastern. Exciting times. Then we have Panthers, Bruins, Wild Stars, and Kings Oilers. All of the home teams are favored. Odds courtesy of BetMGM. So we bring in hockey expert and noted Islanders fan, Michael Leboff. Mike, first off, can you just give us the ratio of nervous to excited that you're feeling heading into tonight?
Oh, maybe 50-50, I think. The Islanders, they had to fight tooth and nail just to get into the playoffs, so I'm kind of used to this sick to my stomach feeling that I've been feeling since mid-February. So at this point, I'm trying to lean into the excitement, but as we get closer and closer to puck drop, it starts to tilt towards just nerve-wracking more than excited, and I'll just be very happy when the game is over, I'm sure, hopefully, but relieved when the game is over, no matter what, because it's too much. The NHL playoffs are just too much.
I hear you on that. Poor thing. Do you have a pick on the game?
Yeah, unfortunately, I actually like the Islanders here. I think that when you look at these two teams stylistically, a lot of the stuff that the Hurricanes don't do well, or stuff the Islanders don't do well, is the same things that the Hurricanes don't do well. So the advantages that Carolina have or has in a series where they're the favorite aren't all that wide. Both teams struggle to score. Both teams can't really rely on their power play to be a difference. And the biggest kind of edge in the series goes to the Islanders, and that's in goal with Ilya Sorokin, who by some models had one of the best goaltending seasons we've seen in the salary cap era. They'll be going up against Antti Raanta in game one, and Ranta's fine. He's above average NHL starter, but he's nowhere near the universe that Sorokin's in. So with that, and the fact that we're looking at what should be a pretty tight game, you look at the totals, 5.5 with juice on the under. You can expect maybe a hot goalie to be the difference, as neither team will be expected to shoot the lights out. So, yeah, I think getting the Islanders at plus 145 is still a pretty good number, and unfortunately, I'll be on them and having even more skin in the game than just my beating heart.
Right. Well, I remember you saying that you thought that this matchup was favorable to the Islanders rather than them matching up with somebody else. So you have that going for you, and you like a series prop for this as well?
Yeah, so like I said, we're expecting pretty low-scoring, tight games all series long, and if you kind of extrapolate out the series or game it out, let's say the totals are between 5.5 for every game, which is, I think, pretty reasonable to expect. And if it goes 6 games, we're looking at around 30 goals total. If you judge off the over-unders, then you split those goals up between both teams, and you're asking 16 from one team and 14 from the other, which means it's not going to take all that many goals to lead the series in scoring. So I like Pierre Engvall on the Islanders. He's, first of all, incredibly good looking, which always helps. And second of all, since he's come over to the Islanders at the trade deadline, he slotted in really nicely on the second line with Kyle Palmieri and Brock Nelson. He's produced at a really good, reasonable second line clip. And I think with so much of the Hurricanes' defensive focus going to Matt Barzal and Bo Horvat's line. That second line should have some success. So if we could get one or maybe two big games out of Engvall, he's got a really good chance to lead the series in scoring at a good number. So it shouldn't take all that much to cash this prop, no matter who you bet. So even if it's not Engvall, I'd search for a price. Go big here, because one hot game from anybody could put them at the top of the list.
So the fact that he's good looking is a plus. Obviously, the numbers support this too. Any other plays for tonight?
For the Los Angeles Kings and Edmonton Oilers game, I actually like the Kings on the money line. The Oilers are really good. They're coming into the playoffs riding an incredible stretch. They're 17-2-1 since they traded for defenseman Matthias Ekholm. They've gotten a point in each of their last 15 games, and they are everybody's pick to come out of the Western Conference, it seems. And I can't really argue with that. But the Los Angeles Kings are a really good hockey team. They'll be missing Kevin Fiala, which is a big deal. But for this game and this style, like, the Kings are pretty well suited to at least slow down the Oilers and try to turn this game into a rock fight. They play very structured game at 5-on-5. And against someone like Connor McDavid, who's just looking to get up and down the ice, and his kind of, cohort, they're going to try to turn this game into a back and forth affair, and the Kings are going to try to do the opposite, and hopefully that turns it into a slog, and you can get a pretty good number on Los Angeles, and what turns into more of a coin flip than these odds suggest. So I'm going to back Los Angeles here. I don't think that they'll eventually come out ahead in the series, but for game one at this price, you're still getting a really good number on a team that, like, 3 or 4 weeks ago, everyone thought was a trendy Stanley Cup dark horse.
Yes, that is true. I recall those conversations. So some value perhaps on the Kings tonight. How are you betting these playoffs from a big picture standpoint?
One piece of advice I'll always give people is to always think about the Conn Smythe, which is given to the playoff MVP market, as when you're thinking about placing a Stanley Cup future, because there are some correlated players who, for example, goaltender Igor Shesterkin last year for the Rangers, he was being offered at 33-1 to win the Conn Smythe, and the Rangers were 15 or 16-1 to win the Stanley Cup at when the playoffs started. And the Rangers were not going to win the Stanley Cup without Shesterkin being the MVP. So instead of betting the 16-1 on the Rangers to win the Stanley Cup, you should just go right ahead and bet that Conn Smythe on someone like Shesterkin. And there are a couple examples here. One is Patrice Bergeron. He's questionable for game one, but I'm not too concerned about that. Bergeron leads the Bruins. They're the overwhelming Stanley Cup favorite. He's their captain. He's known as the best two-way player in the NHL. He wins a Selke Award basically every year. So he doesn't need to have a dynamic stat sheet to end up getting MVP votes when the playoffs are over. People will just kind of lean into the narrative that this guy, what he didn't show up on the stat sheet. He was still the best player on the ice. So you got that going for you. Plus, it's human beings that vote on this award at the end of the playoffs. And there's probably no better story at least in the Bruins camp than Bergeron. Looks like he might retire if the Bruins win the Stanley Cup, skating off into the sunset with the Stanley Cup over his head. Mm-hmm. Sports writers will not be able to resist voting him for the Conn Smythe in that case. So I think at 30-1 or better, if you can find a better number out there, go for it. He's worth a bet. And then I like Connor Hellebuck from the Winnipeg Jets. This is kind of like that Shesterkin example I just gave. Mm-hmm. Winnipeg is a team that is very reliant on their goalie, and he's fantastic. He's one of the best goalies in the league, probably the best goalie in the Western Conference playoffs. If Winnipeg is able to upset Las Vegas, which people are picking them to do, they're plus 140 underdog, and it's definitely reasonable to expect Winnipeg to get the better of Vegas. The Jets are within a chance of making a run here if things break their way because of Hellebuck. He's an incredible goalie. They have the scoring talent to hang with some of the favorites in the Western Conference and beyond. And if they do get to the Stanley Cup final and perhaps win it, which, yes, they're a long shot, but Hellebuck's Conn Smythe odds are much better than their Stanley Cup odds. Mm-hmm. There's almost no way Hellebuck doesn't win the Conn Smythe. So instead of betting Winnipeg to win the Stanley Cup at whatever odds you're looking at, take a look at Hellebuck to win the Conn Smythe. He'll be offered at a longer price and is well worth a bet.
I love that correlation and that little trick that you have given us. I have one more question for you. Do you have any other tricks to help sort of calm your nerves, both as a fan and as a bettor? Any pregame rituals that you're looking at for tonight, for example?
I spend a lot of the last hour before an Islanders game pacing, which I guess it's good exercise. But the Stanley Cup playoffs. The best practice I can give anybody is just to try to stay even keeled and not overreact to what we see in the previous game. There's an example I can throw out from 4 or 5 years ago when the Penguins were playing the Flyers. The Penguins were a big favorite. They blew the doors off the Flyers in game 1. And just based off that performance, the game 2 line just blew up. It was like 45 cents higher on the Penguins. And wouldn't you know, the Flyers came back and won that game 2. So look for spots like that where the market just overreacts to a one-game sample. Let's say that the Bruins blow the doors off the Panthers tonight. And Florida closes plus 180, and then you see for game 2 they close plus 230. You just know right away that even though they're still the underdog, the best value there is kind of going against that line movement, because these are still the same two teams playing each other just 48 hours later.
Words of wisdom from Michael Leboff. Hey, if nothing else, you'll get your steps in tonight, pacing before the game. Thanks for joining us on the show.
Yeah, I'll see you Wednesday, hopefully.
Hopefully. In addition to the NHL picks you just heard from Mike, we also featured MLB, NBA, and soccer picks earlier on the show. Remember, you can easily keep track of all of these by following Green Dot Daily in the Action app. Green Dot Daily is presented by BetMGM. Use bonus code ACTION when signing up to get up to $1,000 paid back in bonus bets if you don't win your first bet. Terms and conditions apply. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. That's all for Green Dot Daily. I'm Maria Marino. Thanks so much for hanging with me, and I'll see you right back here Tuesday at 3 Eastern on the Action YouTube channel and the Action app.